It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Erin Mariscal, who graduated from UMKC, the world's greatest dental school, on the 6-year BA DDS program in 2003 at age 24. We were both 24. We graduated. Congratulations.
Okay.
After graduation, she took a job with the Elks Mobile Dental Program and traveled through mostly rural Missouri for the next 18 months. This program provides dentistry to the developmentally disabled. She then worked for a federally qualified health center in Columbia, Missouri for 1 year. After public health, Dr. Mariscal worked in a private practice associate. Due to low patient volume, the associateship fell within 5 months. In 2006, unable to find a practice for sale, she opened Arnold Smiles in Arnold, Missouri. Starting with 2 ops and 0 patients, the office has grown to a 3-doctor practice with 8 ops. Construction for 5 more ops will be completed by March, so she'll have a total of 13 ops. She is married to her handsome German teacher husband, Marco, and they have 2 kids, 8 and 10. Currently, she practices clinical dentistry 2 12-hour days per week. The other time she has spent working on practice management, writing her blog at simpledds.com, and goofing off on Dental Town and mom stuff. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I've been a big fan of your post on Dental Town, and your passion just oozes through your post. I mean, I just thought, man, I gotta capture your energy, and I'm sure when we post this on Dental Town, the townies are gonna love it because it's someone they know. Man, I just have so many questions for you. First of all, you were on the 6-year program straight out of high school.
Yes.
Good, bad,
and
recommend it?
Looking back on it, that was a mistake. They no longer have that program. It was just really intense, taking 20 hours per semester, starting straight from college. By the time you get to dental school, you're kind of burnt out. So, and I think you should be old enough to drink by the time you start dental school. It's just a personal feeling.
I wasn't. I was 20 the first month of dental school. I didn't turn 21 till August 29th. And the first couple meetings they had at Redbird's. Remember Redbird's bar? Did they still have that bar when you were there? It was right across the street from dental school. I mean, right across.
I think it's called the Firehouse.
Oh, the Firehouse. Well, it was named Redbirds, and it was owned by 2 of the instructors. And I was sitting out there, and one of the instructors said, "Aren't you going to go in?" I said, "The guy won't let me in. I'm only 20." And he said, "How the hell did you get in dental school at 20?" So when they closed down that 6-year program, why did they close it down? Was that the general consensus?
I'm not sure what their official statement was. I know that my class of the people who started, they didn't have a high completion rate.
Oh.
Because how many people know what they want to do when they're 18 years old?
Or 56.
Or 56, I know. I'm still trying to figure it out through that hard, believe me. So I don't know. It's not something I'd want my own kids to do. I think I probably would have had a better dental school experience if I would have had a real college experience first, because I was still trying to do the whole college and party and have a good time thing and balance dental school, and it just isn't a good idea.
Yeah, and it must not. I mean, the market has spoken. They canceled the program.
Yeah, they canceled the program.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. In theory, it's great. You're gonna be young. You're gonna have a longer career. I got out at 24. I remember flying to go visit a friend, and I wasn't old enough to rent a car because you have to be 25 not to pay the age surcharge. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I have a DEA number. I can prescribe narcotics, but I can't rent a car. Like, something doesn't add up here. And, the car rental place was probably right. Who wants a 24-year-old dentist? I'm sorry for anyone listening who's 24, but at 26, I was a lot more mature than at 24, personally.
Well, I was lucky because when I opened up my practice, I was 24 and I graduated May 11, 87 at 23. Then August turned 24 and then opened my practice September 21. And I was so lucky as I was bald. And it was so hilarious because these 2 dentists across the street from me had been practicing for 5 years. And I was always getting second opinions of them saying, well, they're so young. And I wanted to get an older person's opinion. And I'm just sitting there biting my tongue thinking, those guys are 5 years older than me and I just got out of school.
I should have shaved my head.
Yes.
Because that's
Man,
part of the reason I did public health so long is I always got like, oh my gosh, you look so young. You look too young to be a dentist. I don't get that anymore. But I think there is something. I always think about the guys who I graduated with who were 40 when we graduated and I was 24. They went out and bought practices and people thought they'd been doing this forever. And we had the same amount of experience, but what are you going to do?
yeah, I feel sorry for him. I remember one time my sister went in and had her hair colored, and she went in at 3 and they finished at 9. She sat in that chair for 6 hours, and I thought, man, I'm so glad I'm bald. I couldn't imagine sitting there 6 hours. Hey, I want to get 2 women questions out of the way because I'm a man and I'm not qualified to answer these women questions. But you're in Arnold, Missouri, which is just south of St. Louis, about an hour, and you're probably 3 or 4 hours from Effingham, where Heartland Dental is. And a lot of women in dental school, their heart says, I want to have 2 kids like you. You have a son and a daughter, 10 and 8. And they're like, man, if I wanted to be super mom, would it be better I just get like a job at Heartland and do the 8 to 5 thing and don't have to worry about all that? Or should I own my own practice? And I'll have to say, I will throw the men under the bus. It's still a very sexist world, even in America. I mean, I know women dentists and married to man dentists, and guess who does all the homework, the cooking, the cleaning, while he sits on the couch and watches ESPN. So gosh, they just got the right to drive in Saudi Arabia last year. So there is still a ton of sexism going on. So my question to you is, if you were in dental school and you wanted to be a super mom, should you own or be an employee?
This is the $1 million question. So let me back up. First of all, Arnold's only 15 minutes from downtown St. Louis, so we're pretty close to the city.
Oh, so it's a suburb.
It's a suburb. So
okay.
We are right outside of St. Louis County.
Well,
but we're just right over the river.
St. Louis is my favorite city because they gave us the Arizona Cardinals. And then you gave away the Rams. You gave away the Cardinals and we went to the Super Bowl. And then you gave away the Rams and they're in the Super Bowl. You guys are the best city to give away Super Bowl teams.
I'm hoping we get our soccer team we want, but that's another story. So when I was in dental school, it was mostly guys still. And I always thought I would go work for someone else. And that was my plan. And when I graduated, I did public health. I wanted to get a little bit of experience. And then I went and looked for an associateship, which I got, and I wasn't very busy. And then I started trying to find another associateship, and I would send off my resumes, and I wouldn't even get an interview. And these are people who are actively running ads. And I started thinking, okay, they don't want to interview me because I'm a girl. And I have no proof of that. But I probably sent out 10 resumes and didn't get a response from any of them. And I know there aren't that many dentists looking in January. So I couldn't find a job, called some practice brokers. I said, I'm leaving my associateship. I need to buy an office now. And they go, oh no, that's not how this works. We're going to sit down together, talk about your feelings. I may introduce you to some older doctors and we're going to find the right fit. And I was like, no, that's not my personality. I need to buy something now. I need a job. I can't find a job. And so I said, screw it. I'm just going to go open an office. And I did it partially because I was broke in my associateship. My minimum guarantee was $60,000 a year, and I had almost $200,000 worth of student loans. So I was so broke that we were and my husband was a grad student at the time. He's now a German teacher, which is a very well-paid job. So I couldn't find a job, and my husband, God bless him, said, if we're going to be broke, you might as well be broke in your own office. So at the time, I didn't know a single woman who owned a practice. That is a true story. All through dental school, I never was sent to observe a female dentist. None of my friends had bought practices yet. I didn't think, it just wasn't on my radar that I would ever own a practice and that I could do this. The one good thing that came out of my associateship is that he was a Pankey doctor and he had sent me to level 1 at Pankey. And there I met Leanne Brady and a few other women who owned successful practices who were doing the Pankey continuum. And they kind of said, you are broke, go do your own office. You can do this. And I just went and I did a startup and I signed a lease. I came back the next day from Panky. I quit my job. And 6 months later, Arnold Smiles opened.
Wow, that is a cool story.
I mean, there's something to be said about being young and dumb, because looking back on that, thank God it worked out.
That is so why do I wish someone would do this research. Maybe you and I, both UMKC grads, maybe we can get the alumni department to do this, but I wish they would go 5 years out from the graduation class this year and see how many people own their own business, how many are employees, because what I see all the time is that by the time they're 5 years out of school, they've had 5 different associate jobs, they're not happy, and then they eventually get happy when they open up their own office. But in dental school, the big DSOs come in, they get everybody's attention because they offer free pizza, they speak doom and gloom, and you better work for us or you're never going to survive, and they use fear tactics to get everybody to go work for them. And if working for it, and I don't want to throw the DSOs under a bridge because it's the same in private practice. Like you had a job at a private practice and only lasted 5 months. The employee turnover is so high, it just seems mathematically obvious that if you want to be happy and live happily ever after, you should just walk out of dental school like you and I, like I did. I graduated May 11. I had my office open September 21st. And half of my friends walked around the swimming pool for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, getting a different job every year before they finally took the plunge. And then they always say they wish they had done it straight out of school. So if that's where everybody ends up, why doesn't everybody that's a senior in dental school who's $400,000 in debt know that?
You know, I personally think, because I currently have 2 doctors with me who are, I guess, technically associates, but I don't like calling them that because I don't see it as a short-term thing. There's not a good pathway to partnership that is, I guess, well developed or well utilized. I think we're going towards group practice. I personally love being in group practice. I would not want to be a solo dentist again. I get lonely. I like having friends around. I like having people to cover for me so I can go on vacation. There is a lack of mentorship in our industry, and that is why the DSOs are flourishing, is because they take these young dentists who don't have a lot of training. They have development program for them. They give them some little stock options or some little carrot to dangle. And they are the ones who are reaping all the benefits when these young dentists stay on forever. But private practice seems like it's so doom and gloom. I think that there's a lot of solo practice owners who have a real scarcity mentality, who are so afraid to bring someone in with them, like they're going to steal all their patients or something. And it's more of a fear-based, everyone's out to get you, the boogeyman's around the corner mentality in our industry, instead of trying to lift up young people to our level. Does that make sense? And I don't know what the right answer is. I would love to get interviews from people, just like a 2-page blurb 5 years out, from all sorts of people, just because graduating from dental school, I remember being so lost. I had no mentors. I'd never heard of Dental Town. It wasn't until I had my office and it was kind of struggling that I got on Dental Town, and I was desperate enough that I started posting, and I met all my virtual friends. And that is when I dropped my filter. I always tell people I am an open book. I will talk about anything to a fault. And I share my joys, but I will also tell you every dumb thing I've done, how it didn't work out, the stupid things. And I think that's a real sign. I remember going to see Spears, and that was the one thing I loved about him, is he doesn't just show you all the beautiful stuff he does. He'll show you his failures and like, okay, this is what I did, and this was so stupid because this is what happened, and then this is how I fixed it. And that's how we truly learn, is by sharing not just like what's happening and what's going awesome, but showing what we did that was really stupid. Really stupid for me was buying a lake house. I bought a stupid building. All these things are documented on Dental Town thoroughly. Me trying to get out of debt after almost going bankrupt for my stupid financial decisions.
So what did you buy? You bought a condo by the lake?
We bought a lake house in Innsbruck, Missouri, a chalet. And then we bought a building to move the office into. And at the time, I had an accountant who wasn't really explaining to me how taxes work. And I ended up with a huge tax liability from those, and my own stupidity thinking I still had a bunch of depreciation that I didn't. And just living, Dave Ramsey calls it docitis. We were living like doctors and we shouldn't have been.
I'm trying to think of the prosthodontist who was at Green Laboratory in Arkansas who passed away, and he used to always lecture with Dr. Mish and Carl Mish, and I loved him the most out of everyone because all of his lectures were only on his failures. And he would always say that, all the implant speakers, they got the same slides. They show the same tip of the iceberg, perfect cases for 10 years. And he said they never show the dirty stuff. And he showed all the dirty stuff. And he says he always learned more from his mistakes. Well, it sounds like you starting up your new website, Simple DDS, that you're kind of returning your experience with Leanne Brady, who was a mentor for you. She was podcast 800. She's right here in Phoenix. That is so dang cool that you went to the Pankey Institute, met a woman dentist role model, Leanne Brady, and that gave you the impetus to just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, and at that point, when you're in a failing associateship, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, it just feels like it's just, you've been promised everything, nothing's coming true. And you try to stick it out and do the right thing. And then they want you to go out and promote yourself and bring in patients. And you start thinking, well, if I'm going to go bring in all the patients, I'm going to bring them to my office. I'm not going to buy this from you in a few years after I build it up. So was kind of the breaking point when, I don't know, when you have that much in loans, you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to make the payment. And when I started the office, I had to put my loans into deferment. Or is it forbearance? What's the one that's essentially I made too much money, but I couldn't live with paying those loans. So, so then my loans just kept going up and up and up.
And how are you financially doing now? Is this a good return on investment?
Free.
What?
I'm student loan free. Yay.
Nice. You're student loan free.
I paid my student loans off for my 39th birthday last year, and it felt so good.
That's very few women will admit their age. I think that's very cool that you have no.
Oh my gosh. I turned 40 in October, Howard. I love it. I love everything about it. My office manager told me, he goes, Doc, you are almost old enough and rich enough to be eccentric. And I have to embrace my eccentricities. But it's just so fun.
But go back to the original question. I want to be a super mom. I want to be a super mom. Should I work for an associateship or should I start my own practice? I want to do two things well.
I don't know. Is there, I guess that's the issue in dentistry. There's no option 3. I want option 3. I want them to find a great mentor with the potential to buy in. As an owner, my struggle right now is no one can figure out how to do a buy-in. That's another story. A lot of them are kind of like Ponzi scheme things and financing things and weird stuff.
I think the business model has not been invented yet because you see two obvious things. You see this rapid turnover of associateships in private practice and DSOs, and the DSOs want to hold all the ownership so they can, so Wall Street can own it all, or private equity groups and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you were going to pioneer the model, you're in St. Louis. I think the lawyers and the consultants are so much better at this. You should go to you should find the most rocking hot law firm in St. Louis owned by a woman and say, how do you get people? Because what they do is they bring in an associate, and if they hustle good and all that, then they make partner. And they want to be, and half the attorneys are in these partnerships and the other half are solo practice. It's a 50-50 thing. And my lawyer that I've used for 30 years, is in a partnership, and he loves it because he just does specific law. So whenever I have a question that doesn't rely to him, like say internet law or some other law, he's got all these people in the firm, but they are very good at retaining people. So you should meet a woman
Actually,
lawyer and pioneer.
that is a great idea because I feel like I need to step outside of our industry to
Right.
see how other people are doing partnerships because everyone, and I know you've interviewed some people who do those partnership type deals, some of the same people I've talked to about it, and it just doesn't seem right. I don't want to be predatory and rip off these young doctors who I've come to love as colleagues. But at the same time, the question is how to do it to be fair to all of us, because I have built something that's kind of special. And also to make a model for, I wish someone would go out and pioneer a model, especially for female dentists, because we do have maternity leave and we do have other things that are unique to us. Both of my associates are currently pregnant. Thank goodness their maternity leaves aren't overlapping, but I'm so happy for them. I'm also so happy that they're not going to have to go borrow $30,000 in working capital to pay the office overhead while they're on maternity leave like I did. It just was a huge burden as a young practice owner to have children. And that's why I'm kind of torn when you ask me, what would you recommend for a young woman to do? Because I had many sleepless nights over that debt and over the burden of who's going to cover for me. My lab called me my second day of maternity leave and said, the guy that you hired to cover your maternity leave is doing work that is not up to clinical standards, and he needs to get out of your office. And I had to ask him not to come back in. I had no doctor. I had to go back in and re-prep some of his crown preps. It was a disaster. So I would not wish that on anyone.
Price Waterhouse, I think is the one everybody should be studying. I mean, Price Waterhouse, how they got 1,200 employees on LinkedIn. They got a place in St. Louis. Price Waterhouse Coopers down on 800 Market Street, 1900 St. Louis. But I think they're the ones who perfected partnership. In fact, I should. You should.
We should work on this, Lord.
What's that?
We should work on this.
Yeah, because the problem with employees is, and the FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Facebook keeps their employees the longest, and it's only 2 years, and Amazon burns them the fastest. It's only 1 year, and it's because they're just burning and churning. They want you to come in, work 12-hour days, 7 days a week until you just can't take it anymore. And so I think millennials, nobody likes living in their nest. That's why all the baby birds fly the nest someday. They all want their own place. They all want to fly away. And but PricewaterhouseCoopers, you should go down there and find a woman consultant down there and say, just explain to me the whole make partnership thing. I want to ask you another woman question though. When you look at university done research on the dental market, they say you can split America in half. And they've been saying this for 30 years, that half the people shop on price, so they're going to sign up with the cheapest insurance they can get, lowest fee. And the other half shop on fear. They're actually afraid. And I would think everybody thinks a woman is nicer, gentler, softer, better listener, and you have two associates and you're all women. Did you specifically want to brand an all-female office because you think that's a unique selling proposition and a competitive advantage, or it was just random that your two associates are women?
It's not random. When I was in dental school and in public health, I heard more than one time, I don't want to see a woman. And people were put off by it. And it wasn't as common then, but it did hurt my feelings. And especially in dental school, they told us it doesn't matter if they want to see you or not, they have to see you, they can't be reassigned another student. And it was just an uncomfortable situation. The associateship I was in was with a man, And I didn't run into that a lot, but I remember a lot of comments about people being surprised I was a female. And then when I opened my office, my name is Erin, and that can kind of go both ways. So I specifically started running a photograph with my marketing stuff. I wanted people to know that I was a girl, and I wanted them to know that I was young. So we could just get that out of the way. And if that's not for you, go somewhere else. So when I opened my practice, I opened it with, this is who I am. I think I'm great enough. And if you want to give me a try, great. And if I'm not for you, if you don't want to see a woman dentist, I'm a girl, here's my picture, go somewhere else. So it started off, and I do think I got a lot of patients who wanted that. I started with a very young practice demographic. People my age. I was 26 when I opened my office, 27 when it really got up and going. So it started with a very young patient group, and we've kind of grown up together, but then they sent their parents and their grandparents, and it's turned into this really lovely family practice. When I went to hire my first associate, and I did have a good friend who's a periodontist who was in with me for a couple of years, just 1 or 2 days a week. And that's a guy, Dr. Christopher Parks is a periodontist. And we did a lot of cool implant stuff together and surgical stuff together. But when I went to hire my first general practice associate, I ran an ad. It had my website in it. It had who I was in it. It said, probably would be the best opportunity for either a female dentist or a man who's very in touch with his feminine side. Because that's kind of what it was this girly, flowery office. And I mainly had women apply for it because you poor guys work with mostly female staffs anyway. I don't know if you want to work with a female dentist too. So it was kind of a cautionary tale. I have not had a lot of men apply. When I ran my second ad for my second associate, I did have a few men apply, but they were still in school and not graduating until summer, and I needed someone immediately. So the 2 available candidates I had were both females.
Wow.
But I do find that we get most of our patients because they like that motherly female feel. I will say that our office manager is a man. Poor Dan has to deal with all of us women.
Okay, but that's still, I love biology. I don't like when people talk about terms in politics and other things that don't have a scientific basis. And when you look at all the great apes, humans, chimpanzees, orangutans, only the bonobos is a female matriarch system, kind of like the whales. The little mama whale is the king, and the big daddies twice her size are taking orders. And I have noticed that the most successful women dentists who own their own office either have a man or a gay man as their office manager, receptionist. And I this is Dentistry Uncensored, so we can go there. But it seems like the gay men are the most intuitive.
How do you know that Dan is gay?
Is he gay?
Him and Sean are married, so I think so.
Yeah, see what I mean? See, I come on, come on. If you're driving a car, give me a clap. I just called one. I mean, I've been in this game for 31 years. But gay men are just more intuitive to the staff. They're more intuitive to the patients. They're better touchy-feely. I mean, I hope that doesn't insult any gay men, but and I've talked to my brother about this. My brother was gay. He was 17 years younger than me. He's what you call a Catholic, birth control, Vatican roulette, family planning, and he was born when I was 17, gayer than Liberace and Elton John combined, and is amazing on the piano. So we've had a lot of these talks, and so I'm sitting here telling you on Dentistry Uncensored, if you're a woman dentist and you own a practice, because here's some of the difficulties that are fine. Women are trained, or biology, we're not bonobos, we're Homo sapien, but if their dad says, Erin, go get me a beer, you just run and get the beer. When you work for a man and you're a woman and he says, "Get me a coffee," this, that, but it seems like women owners, when they bark an order out to a female assistant or staff, whatever, it's just more complicated, and it seems like gay men are just better rodeo clowns to hold the whole thing together.
I mean, he's fantastic. He's like our cheerleader for the office. He's
Yeah.
just always in a good mood, and he's really good at confrontation with staff and patients, just making sure everyone's happy. And he's kind of a buffer between me and the real world. If someone has an issue, which, by the time your office gets to a certain size, you're going to have conflict and issues.
And how long has he been? How long has he been with you?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing. If you look at my record under a microscope, my dental office is 31 years old, but my entire management team, about 5 people, have all been there 20. So for 11 years, I wasn't being a good enough delegator, having other people do their job, realizing that other people do the job better than me, and now
Right.
that I built a team of 5 people, I actually never have to go to work the rest of my life. I just, you just, but the bottom line is it's all about the management team. So, fire fast, hire slow. When you know
Yes.
somebody's not going to take you to the Super Bowl, get rid of them. And if they're toxic, I can't believe how many seminars I go to where I identify a toxic staff member, and I'm thinking, shit, I've only met this office for 5 minutes, and when the doctor talks, the assistant's rolling her eyes. It's like he pays you to roll your eyes. I mean,
Right.
it just doesn't add up. So the management team is everything. But I would keep it now that you got Dr. Christopher Parks out of there. And you got three women. I mean, I think it's a hell of a brand because I've seen it in several cities where their marketing is more feminine. Maybe it's more pink or flowers, and it says things are you afraid of the dentist? We're gentle dentistry. We're not going to hurt you and all this. And who listens better? I mean, when you were a kid, who listened to you better, your mom or your dad? Where do kids go? I mean, sure, it depends on your parents, but for a generalization, I think people are afraid to ask the dentist questions, and
Yeah.
the only thing I've seen anti-woman from a patient is, and I learned this really quick when I had my first woman associate, is she went to give him a shot, and he grabbed her wrist, and he says, "Shouldn't the doctor do that?" And then I put
Oh,
myself in the patient's point of view. The assistants and everybody was in street clothes. And how was he to know
yes.
what the hell she was? I mean, imagine
I'm
you're in the
glad-
hospital and a guy with a tool belt walks in, and you think he's there to fix the electrician, and he starts to give you a shot. So that's when we went to total uniforms.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So that was something when I started my own office, I was insistent upon is that the staff would wear a uniform and I would wear a white coat. At my office, doctors dress up every day. So most of us, we just wear like black slacks and either heels or ballet flats. And usually just a blouse underneath like this. I wore this to work yesterday. Can you tell it's dirty? Hopefully you can't smell me. And we wear a white coat that has our logo on one side and our name, Dr. Mariscal, Dr. Gordon, Dr. Fasanella on the other lapel. The staff all wears the black Wonder Winks lab jackets in black. And those have our logo and it has their names. I like for people to see the staff's name and their title embroidered. We did name tags for a while and those were a mess. So everyone has their embroidered jackets. Luckily, we have very low turnover. And it just looks polished and clean. Everyone matches. Everyone wears all black on the staff. And it just has that really clean kind of salon feel. When you said earlier that go with the feminine, you can be a little flowery. We actually went, when we remodeled and did our expansion, we kind of went for a super sleek, modern design. We did some pops of yellow to make it kind of cheerful. But I will say that we tend to be a very technology heavy practice. So patients, when they come in, they do all their paperwork on the iPad. We're pretty much paper free. All of our informed consents are done on iPad. We have the dual TV, so there's one at the toe of the chair. When the patient leans back, they're looking at a TV monitor on the ceiling. It's just technology everywhere because I'm a nerd. We have the iTero scanner. It's just very modern, very tech heavy. And because of that, we also draw a lot of millennial patients, which millennials get a bad rap. I love millennials. They are cool, they are fun, they are tech savvy. Most of my staff are millennials.
Are you a millennial?
I'm Generation X. No, I'm Generation X. By a couple years. I'm in the, do they call it Xennial, where they say that we kind of can pop between the two generations because we grew up with, we got our first smartphone in our 20s. So we're a bit more into technology than most Gen Xers, but I just think they're cool and fun, and we kind of have a young, fun vibe to our office.
Yeah, it's amazing because everything I read about the the generations in the workplace. You got the traditionals from 30 to 45, baby boomers 46 to 64. That's me. I was 62. Generation X 65 to 76. Millennials are 1977 to 94, and then after that is Gen 9/11 or Gen Z. But what I love most about reading at the about these traditionals, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, is that anybody who has a PhD says that there is nothing statistically significant about any of these generalizations. They say it's a media induced hype world, and don't look at that stuff for research. So back you just said that you're high tech. What practice management system do you use?
We have EagleSoft as our practice management, but we also use Yappy, which I love. Because all of our paperwork is online, and we do all of our forms through Yappy on the iPads in the office. All the treatment plans, everything are done through Yappy.
You know what Yappy stands for?
Oh my gosh, no, but I know Gina. She's going to kill me for not knowing.
Yet another practice management information system. I mean, she was rolling her eyes. That is the ultimate woman mentor that you should go meet. I mean, you met Leanne Brady. You should go spend the day with Gina Dorfman. I mean, when I lecture...
I know Gina. You know, we were in the same mastermind group, Gina and I, on the Practice on Fire mastermind.
Really? Talk about that,
Yeah.
the Practice on Fire mastermind.
Yeah. With Graham Dursley. Me and Gina are the only girls. She's like my sister.
So what group is that? Say that group that you're in there with? The what?
It's Graham Dursley's mastermind group.
How do you spell Dursley?
Dersley. Graham, I better have spelled that right.
Graham Dursley mastermind group.
Dursley. Just search Practice on Fire on Dental Town. They put on their own conference and stuff.
In Tennessee, right?
So Graham is in, oh gosh, you're gonna embarrass me, Virginia maybe? He's a prosthodontist. Someone Google Graham Dursley. Is he Maryland? No, he's in Maryland. So Graham got on Dental Town and connected about 20 of us from around the country. So it's like Graham Dursley, Corey Glenn, Tim Roush, Gina, I'm Chris Phelps. You're gonna embarrass me now. Anyway, it's like a whole scandal on Dental Town because people are mad they didn't get invitations, but in a funny way. Or people got invited, didn't join, and now went back in, and it's not like that. What were we talking about?
So his website is Graham. So his website is Practice Ownership, and his name is Graham on GRA.
No, it's not. It's Graham Dursley.
Yeah,
he's a prosthodontist.
Yeah, after graduating from prosthodontic residency in 2007, he was ready to take on the dental world. Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
But
and North Beach is where he's at.
It's where he's at.
Churchton Dental Care.
But the thing about those the thing about study clubs, there's a lot of research on study clubs, and when you set up study clubs, there's like 5 to 9 people. Dentists will bring study models and they'll open up in their share. And once you get, it's a very tight line, like, over 12 or 13, then they go into classroom behavior and they just sit there and listen to the presenter. So it's pretty genius of him that he's setting up a practice deal, and he's limiting it to small groups because it just needs.
A mastermind group is different than a study group. It's based off the Napoleon Hill book. Oh my gosh, I'm so terrible at names. What is it?
Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he talks about how he had a mastermind group. This is mostly business group where you share ideas, you encourage each other. It's very little clinical, actually, a mastermind group, which is different than, I would say we all kind of have our own focus within clinical dentistry, but what we have in common is we all have large, successful offices. And encourage each other to take risk. And a lot of people have side things that they do, like Gina Dorfman has Yappy. Dave Maloney is what's his podcast? Relentless Dentist. Chris Phelps has Strategic Practice. I always jokingly tell them I'm the least successful member, and I only got in because they needed another girl, and all the other girls they invited said no. That's what Graham told me. But through that group and through the group encouragement, I was able to take some risks that I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing without other successful people saying, you can do this. Because, I had a 4-op office and it was good and it was enough, but I had more patients. I needed to expand, but I just didn't really want to spend the money to do it. And they helped me work through, first of all, most of them had larger offices already. So just the encouragement that just because things are okay right now doesn't mean they can't be better. And at a certain point, you need to keep looking up to see that people have done stuff like this. Because I just didn't have anyone locally that I felt was a good mentor to help me work through that.
Well, Graham is amazing on Dental Town. I put it all together now. I mean,
Graham's amazing. Have you interviewed him?
I have not interviewed him.
Oh my gosh, you need to interview him about the mastermind group. I would love to listen to that and see how he went and put that together too.
Yeah, I mean he's got 9,000 posts on Dental Town. I mean, he's an amazing townie.
He's kind of a quiet guy. I think he flies under the radar, but he is brilliant. Yeah. And I owe a lot to him and the people in that group. Through that group, I also was introduced to Strategic Coach, which is entrepreneur coaching outside of dentistry, and joined a cohort with that where it was mainly they had an income requirement to get into the group. So very successful entrepreneurs that just really taught me some skills to work through decision making, like just writing down risk versus benefit versus goals in life, professional and personal, because at the end of the day, it's all what we come home to, right? I'm actually traveling much less than I was and being home more because I found me being away was putting stress on my family and my marriage, which is part of the reason I wanted to do my blog, because it's a way for me to share my message without having to run around and network and be different places. Because right now I need to be at home with my kids and doing mom stuff.
Man.
And
yeah, you're right. That is so profound. That is so good that you found that early when people don't realize the personal price they're going to pay. I'll never forget, I was at Panky, and one of the periodontists there, his mom was, who's that? Rodney Dangerfield. It was Rodney Dangerfield's sister was his mom.
Oh,
And when
wow.
he grew up, he was traveling around with his mom, who was Rodney Dangerfield's, and he was on Saturday Night Live. He was at all those places. And he said that the burnout of those comedians living on the road, living in hotels, it's a downward spiral path that all leads to disease and depression and burnout. And
Yeah.
he seriously wished that Rodney never would have been a comedian, that he just would have been a normal
Yeah.
guy and had a normal life. The personal price was way too high. Hey, how far are you from Effingham?
I'm not even sure.
It's just
I've
right up
never been.
70. It's in the middle of the
I
states
think
where
it's like, I think we're like 2 hours maybe.
yeah, because you're with Yappy, and Effingham is home of Eaglesoft. Have you ever? It's been one of my. I switched from soft dent to open dental just because open dental is open. Just because I
Yes.
finally have given up and I want to bring in my own
Yes.
programmers, and with open dental we can start programming. I got 20 people been crunching the same damn reports, and when I look at the general dentist and you try to manage their dental office, like I couldn't manage their dental office with. I mean, it'd be like Stevie Wonder behind the control ship of an airplane, and they just Eaglesoft and Dentrix just refused to integrate with a practice management accounting system, whether it be Great Plains, Microsoft GP, they bought Great Plains Accounting, or Peachtree Accounting. If they did it, they'd probably do it with Quicken, and Quicken is a great software plan if you have a garage sale going on. But if you're, it's not sophisticated enough to do anything sophisticated, and it's been a mission of mine for 30 years. And I was wondering, if you ever thought of Eaglesoft versus Open Dental, since you're with Yappy.
I looked into switching to open dental when we did our expansion. Right now, I find that I'm not running as many reports and stuff as I used to. I kind of have my key reports I run, and I've made Eaglesoft do the basic things I want to. Yappy has helped a lot with closing the gap between Eaglesoft not having great paper-free systems.
Well, I'm sure Gina would love to have a commercial from you right now. So tell all
Well,
these people what Yappy.
and I'm sure
Gina will be
there's
sending
other.
you flowers if you go into commercial mode with her. It's Dr. Gina Dorfman, and the website is yappycentral.com. But tell them what yet another
I'm
practice
sure there's
management.
other companies that do the same thing, but in this day and age, and maybe this is my wanting to be a millennial, I get pissed that people are still printing a paper form for everything. It seems so stupid. We're printing a form. So many offices still print a form, have a patient fill it out in pen. Then their front desk person they're paying $20 to $30 an hour is sitting there typing that in, doing basic data entry. Then someone has to shred that piece of paper or scan that piece of paper to make sure it was transferred right, and then you shred it. Whereas if someone just types it into the freaking iPad themselves or does it before they come into the office, you just saved like 1,000,000 hours of payroll. And people are surprised we have a 3-doctor practice. I only have 3 front desk people. So there's a lot of times there's only one person up front or 2 people up front. And it's because so much of it's automated. And the fee schedules are all entered. And it's just kind of basic systems that people don't implement that makes me crazy. When I walk into a friend's office and they want me to help them figure stuff out, I can't get past the piles and piles of paper everywhere. And it's just, I don't care if people use Yappy or if they use whatever else is out there, but quit filling out your patient forms and ink and transferring data. And that's also how mistakes are made. I can't read half the people's handwriting. Have the people type it.
Yeah. So let's go. Another question I want to ask you is, you went in a suburb of St. Louis. I mean, Missouri has a dental school. How many dental schools are in Missouri? UMKC.
Just 2, AT Stills.
And where's AT Stills at?
They do their first 2 years in Kirksville, Missouri, and their clinic is in St. Louis. And then I guess we have SIUE in Edwardsville, which is like an hour from here in Illinois.
Right. So Missouri, with 2 dental schools, and
Mhm.
two dental schools, and one an hour away from St. Louis, with a population. By the way, Missouri and Arizona have the same population of 6 million, and we have two dental schools. What do you say to kids? Did demographics matter? Did you find an area that needed a dentist? Did you do demographics, or were you just born in Arnold, Missouri, and went home, or where were you born and raised?
Um, I am a nomad. I was born in Houston, lived in Dallas, and then my dad got transferred to St. Louis when I was in fifth grade. So I went to high school in Washington, Missouri, which is a rural area about an hour from here. I picked Arnold, Missouri, because my husband, having a master's degree in German literature, that is code for German teacher. So he got a teaching certificate, found a teaching job about 10 minutes from Arnold, and that's how we ended up in Arnold, Missouri. I knew nothing about demographics. Arnold did not need a dentist, which is probably why I had a very slow start. I was not an overnight sensation. 4 months after my startup, I had a fire at the office. The nail salon next door burnt down. And then I had a month of closure and $100,000 worth of smoke damage. And even I thought that might give me a little publicity, but even the news, when they said that there was a fire, they called me American Smiles. So, I mean, I just couldn't get any publicity. I couldn't. My location had poor visibility. I have since gone and taken Scott Luna's breakaway practice, which is the best startup class out there, or practice management for a new owner class out there. And when I sat in his class about location, it suddenly became really clear all the terrible mistakes I had made. So through hard work, I have made it work. But when I run my practice demographics, they are terrible. You would think that we're starving to death.
And you're not. And you grew from one doctor in 4 ops to now 3 doctors in 8 ops, soon to be 13 ops. So how did you end up growing that fast? Was it marketing? What was it?
I mean, fast. It's been 13 years. A lot of it's just hanging on and being around. I will say the one thing about smaller communities is that your reputation is everything. And which, by the way, I also like your book, Howard. You know, you treat people right, kind of the golden rule. I don't have a written warranty or guarantee, but dentistry is not perfect. And if something fails or has an issue, I am always willing to help people and go above and beyond. And I think word gets out about that because so many dentists try to nickel and dime people over stupid stuff. Like, oh, this crown came off. It's been 18 months. They think they don't have to pay a re-cement fee. I'm thinking, why would you charge them to re-cement that when your crown came off so quickly? Like, that would make me mad as a patient. So if I was the patient, what's the right thing to do? I think will get you a long way in practice.
Well, my associates sign a contract when they come work with me. And, I tell them that we warranty everything 5 years. So it really changes diagnosis treatment plan because, God, if you live to be 80 years old, I mean, that's living 5 years 16 times. So if you can't fix a tooth to last 5 years, if it lasted 5 years, they'd have to replace it 16 times in their lifetime. I mean, the average American buys 13 new cars in their lifetime for a median price of $33,000. So think about this. You know, they would, back in the day, someone would break out their front tooth and they'd do a root canal, post bill up, and a crown. And 2 years later, they walk in, they have it in their hand. And then the associate's like, well, I did the best I could. I'm like, well, no, it only lasted 2 years. And so you live to 80, right. You're supposed to have your front tooth replaced 40 times. It should have been an implant. It should have been a 3-unit bridge. It should have been something that lasts 5 years. And if it can't, and it really gets good, I really think it changes the incentives of diagnosing and treatment planning because you can't do patch and fill. You do an MODBL amalgam, and then they come in a year later and the whole cusp is off. Well, guess doc. So then in that case, you would credit what was done towards the crown, which should have been done the first time.
That's
And,
exactly
and the
what
reason I stayed out of court all these years is because I can't believe these chintzy dentists where someone will come, they'll want a refund and they'll say no, and then they'll file a complaint at the board, and then you got to cancel Thursday. You got to hire Arizona's best malpractice attorney, Jeffrey Tonner. You got to, all the blood and guts. They're sweating all this stuff, all because you made her a denture and she doesn't like it.
Right.
You should have upgraded it to an all-on-4 or something else, but she's not happy, and you want to go spend the day at the board, or you want to give her money back. That Walmart returns 1% of everything they sell. People will go buy a tent, go camping, and then return it on Monday and say it was ripped, and there's mud and dirt all over and
Right.
Walmart says we ain't got time for this. We just take it back. You figure 1% are crazy. So you said you love technology. You also bought iTero. Does that mean you're an Invisalign practice? Because iTero is owned by Align Technology, which owns Invisalign.
Yeah, we do more Invisalign than we used to. I don't do a ton of Invisalign. Um, it just, yeah. So yeah, we do Invisalign. Yeah, we have an iTero. I will not do an iTero commercial. There's a learning curve. We've had ours for about a year, and I still, people with tiny mouths, and I still find situations where we're taking real impressions all the time for different reasons.
Now, are you using your iTero for Crown and Bridge too? Are you doing scans to the lab?
Yep. We scan them to the lab.
And is that a local lab in St. Louis?
We do use 2 local labs in St. Louis. Yeah.
And
so
and they both take incoming iTero scans.
They both will take them. My smaller, very local lab does not love iTero because it's not open format,
Right.
and that's my biggest complaint with iTero. If I had to do it again, I'm not sure that's the one I would buy.
What do you think you'd buy? What's the oral scanner that's open format like Open Dental?
I think Trios is
3
right?
shape.
I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah, the 3
Yep.
shape.
Yep.
If I was going to
Copenhagen.
buy one, if I was going to do it again, that's probably what I would buy. I like to research stuff, so I'd have to research it again. I thought that we would do, it was actually one of the labs was offering some kind of incentive if you bought an iTero, so I was kind of choosing between those two, and because they were going to help me with the payments, I ended up doing that one.
Yeah, and what I don't understand is on Dental Town, every year we do the Townie Choice Awards. You got thousands of dentists with 8 to 12 years of college voting on their favorite product. And then they come and they say, well, they just really wish they did this over. And I'm like, well, go back to the Townie Choice Awards. See what several thousand dentists thought for oral scanners or whatever. But so do you recommend, like take 3M? I've used their SB Impergum since dental UMKC. That was the first. I was trained on that. It costs about $17 to take an Impergum quadrant, send it to the lab, make a crown. But they want me to trade in that $17 Impergum for a $17,000 True Definition scanner, where the software support. You can't grow a business by selling a big high price ticket item, because how do you have the recurring revenue? That's why Procter and Gamble. We're one of the first billionaires, and what I love about Procter & Gamble is they were the first ones that really wrote a book about, to the masses about business. But what they noticed was soap dealers, like small town Missouri. Some guy in a horse and buggy would come by, sell you a gunny sack of soap, and then you'd have enough soap for the next 5 years. And they'd sell everybody in the town the soap, and then they go bankrupt. I mean, when I got to school in '87, I bought a $50,000 YAG laser. They sold 1,000 of them for $50,000 a piece, and then went bankrupt because they went through a 3-4 month period with not enough sales. They don't have recurring revenue. So what Procter & Gamble did said, let's sell mom a bar of soap that she'll run out of every month because we pay our bills monthly. And that was their trajectory. So now all these software scanners, they want this $200 a month software support system because that's their reoccurring revenue model. So I'm like, God, $2,400 a year for a software agreement. Talk me off the Impergum ledge and why I should jump over to an oral scanner.
So I'm like you. I'm very analytical about stuff. So I actually figured out how many units per month we did. I figured out how much impression material we buy per month. My local lab will do a case for $50 less per unit if it's scanned versus a traditional impression, because I don't have to do the model work on it. So that took my unit price with the one lab from $150 to $99 per unit. So I forget the exact number. It's like 30 units per month scanning that it would pay for itself. And that's how I did it. And then I also figured what we were spending. I figured what you figured, how long the technology would be good. So I ended up financing it for 3 years. I thought that's probably I should get at least 3 years out of it. I think I prepaid for 5 years of service upgrades. And when I did the math, it worked out that I would actually save money with it. And then the other lab in town said if we submit so many cases per month to them, they would pay a portion of my scanner payment. So at that point, it's kind of risk-free in a way that I know we do between the 3 doctors. I don't know the exact number of units, but it's more than 30 units per month. Yeah, that it was worth it. So that was my very analytical way of figuring it out.
So another mission of yours that you talk about a lot in Dental Town is mental health. You talk about currently starting to try some type of mental health fund at UMKC. That you were touched deeply by suicide of friends that were in school with you. Talk about the dark side of dentistry, the world, mental health, which is still a huge taboo.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge taboo, and I don't understand why. So dental school was not the rosiest time of my life. I was young in dental school. I was still, as a woman, in the minority. So I was a young girl. I'm fairly introverted too. I just felt a bit bullied by some faculty. We had a lot of older retired military. I had one who, shout out to Dr. Eshelman, made me cry, told me I was the reason girls shouldn't be in dental school, and just was a real jerk. And the team I was in, team 2 was kind of the tougher team. And so personally, I felt stressed out by the not just the academic part of it, but also the social and the lack of support from faculty. And I understand they have a lot to teach in 4 years, but it just wasn't a real encouraging or nurturing environment. It was more like, we're going to weed out the weak and we're going to see if you guys can survive. And we had, I'm not sure the number of people who started dental school and didn't complete the program, but we had a few that quit the program. And shortly after dental school, I had my first classmate, Anthony Tran, committed suicide. And it touched me deeply and profoundly. And he was also a 6-year student. So we met each other when we were 18 years old starting the program. And I still think about him a lot, and I think about it a lot. And then a 6-year student from the class above me, Andrea Rourke, also committed suicide. And then I have a patient who was a 2nd year in dental school last year who had to leave the program during 2nd year, and that spurred some mental health issues. I'm not sure if there was a suicide attempt, but it's like the chicken or the egg. Is it because of our training that we go crazy, or are we crazy and that's why we could become dentists? And I don't know, but it just seems like either I attract crazy people or dentistry attracts crazy people. But also the stress of dentistry has spurred my own depression at times.
And it's all multifactorial. Like you talk about, which makes you crazy, dental school or going to dental school? It's like, look at the military. They have 26 suicides a day. I mean, you're in a high school class and one says, I want to be a dentist. I want to be a nurse. I want to be an accountant. I want to go to war. I want to go to, it's so natural selection that's a tough group in the military. And so it's all multifactorial. It runs in family. My family, we're afraid that if we analyze our family tree, the CDC will come in and quarantine us all and sterilize us and put them in a farm. But yeah, there's so many multifactorials, and then there's substance abuse that skyrockets onto that. So if a person, I mean, look at everybody in prison. They have three things in common. They have substance abuse, didn't graduate from high school, live below the poverty line. That just summed up 80% of people in prison. And so if you're in dental school, you're a natural selection of, you weren't well-rounded. Like you didn't go to 4 years of college and join a sorority. So natural selection, you get those gunner type people. And that's what's scary about dentistry is half the gunners were trained to be backstabbers because they were trying to get in that orthodontic oral surgery program. Yeah. So they lived in fear and scarcity. And you still see that in the specialties. I mean, they backstabbed all the way up. They didn't want to help you on the test. They were hoping you didn't know there was a test tomorrow, a quiz tomorrow. And now they're a specialist. And when you go call them up and say, hey, will you help me on this Invisalign case? They're like, hell no. If you're an orthodontist and you put an online CE course on Dentaltown like the brazen Dr. Richard Litt did, he's blackballed from the orthodontic community. He can't lecture, publish, and he was the director of the orthodontic program at UCSF and then again in Detroit. And he said, my God, these orthodontists, if you try to share what we know to a general dentist, you are blackballed for life. So then you set up your own practice. You got to go out and meet all these specialists because at least half of them are backstabbing, living in fear and scarcity. And you got to find the ones that are helpful, living in hope, growth, and abundance, and think, hell yeah, I'd love to help you. Because if they help you do an Invisalign case, well, where are you going to send them when it's all the tougher cases and where all the complicated stuff? So you either live in fear or you live in hope, growth, and abundance. And it's always bothered me that mental health, it's still open season for making fun of, something's wrong with you. People say, oh, he's crazy. It's like, well, I was born bald. I mean, I don't have any saying over my height, all these things, but I think that mental health it's got so far to go.
Yeah, and I said earlier I love being 40 because I feel like I know who I am. Like, yes, I am crazy. That's fair enough to say, but I kind of love my craziness. Like, who wants to be normal? And I don't know. And maybe that's just personal confidence that happens over time. I don't know why people are so embarrassed to talk about it, because people send me little messages through Facebook groups or Dentaltown about mental health stuff and questions. And I'm like, you know what? Pay it forward. Go talk about it, which is why when I was talking to UMKC about this mental health fund, I don't want to donate money to upgrade the lab. That doesn't speak to me. I don't personally feel that it's going to hurt your enrollment to have an aged lab when you're the only state dental school. What does bother me, though, is that if my kids go to UMK School of Dentistry, and hopefully they will want to be dentists, I want them to have a more professionally supportive environment. And if they would have mental health issues, for it to at least be talked about and for there to be some conversation about it. Depression and all that is also linked to the huge substance abuse issues. I don't know if binge drinking was a thing when you were in dental school, but my liver is still recovering from dental school. I don't know. I think, and that's my mission this year, is to get this fund endowed. I'm not sure what it's going to be. Don't worry, Howard, I'll hit you up for money later. But
well, you should start a thread on it in Dentaltown.
Oh, I will. I'm trying to figure out what to. I would love for people to do that at their schools too. I think everyone has been touched in some way, and I was talking to the dean about it, and I wrote a heartfelt email, which will eventually be a blog post I'll share on Dentaltown, And I got up one night, and for some reason, it just hits me sometimes. I start thinking about Anthony, and it was around Christmas time, and thinking about my kids sleeping upstairs and what a great dad he would have been, and just wondering if anyone could have done anything, it just, all of that is just lost. And I don't know. Have you lost anyone from your class from suicide?
Oh, yeah. In fact, my favorite instructor did it, Matthias Horgan. It just took my breath away. And then out here in Arizona, I've been out here 31 years. Every single year someone does it. And it's always multifactorial. The last one, he broke up with his lover, and he had mental health issues. And, it's all, humans are just incredibly complex. They're incredibly complex, and I celebrate my crazy mind because, I remember in 1999, Dentaltown turns 20 years old on St. Patrick's Day, and I got the idea in 98. I had paid off all my debt. I had saved up $1 million, and then I got this idea, and then I had I hired 14 programmers, which was very expensive back then because they were doing the Y2K build out, so everybody needed a programmer. And then I burned through $1 million and was only half done, so then I had to go borrow $1 million. So I went from plus $1 million. I remember my ex, my sister, and my dad spending the whole day in my kitchen on a Sunday crying, begging me to stop this complete insanity, and that every month I was burning $90,000 a month, and I was buying 3 brand new Suburbans. They were $30,000 a piece back then, and going to the Grand Canyon and throwing them off a cliff, and to sit there and have your ex and your sister and your dad cry all day long. But I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't crazy. And
exactly.
I saw the vision. I said, dude, I want this for me. I want to be able to talk to another dentist and share an x-ray. And I was ahead of, hell, I beat Facebook by 4 years. But instead of going after the mass market, I just went after the 1 in 2,000 Americans as a dentist because it was all selfish. I just totally wanted it to me. And the thing I love most about Dentaltown is I'm addicted to my own product. If you banned me from Dentaltown, I would cry. I'm banned from Orthotown. I own that, but I'm banned from that. They only allow orthodontists on there.
I was pretty sad when I got banned. Luckily, Hogo showed mercy on me. I wrote a very sweet apology about, I'm sorry I lost my temper.
Oh, yeah. Well,
sincere.
People are complex, and I got 4 boys, and I tell them, make a mistake. If you learn something, it's a lesson. It's not a mistake. And and I just love the community of Dentaltown. I love the fact. And another thing I quit doing because some people are getting mad, but whenever dentists made the news for getting arrested for whatever, it's already on Google News, it's already on the TV. I would post it under the legal section, and a lot of dentists would get mad and say, "Why do you post all this mean stuff about dentists?" Like, well, I didn't write the story. It's on TV. It's in their newspaper. I just want to give you a heads up for 2 reasons. Number one, when you're doing crazy stuff, like there's, every couple of years some dentist got a hidden camera in the bathroom or whatever, that, you're going to get caught. So I did it for showing these people there's consequence to your behavior. But furthermore, a lot of those people I posted emailed me. And because I emailed them that I posted on Dentaltown, I looked up their website and emailed them. And what was really cool to me is how many of those guys weren't even townies. And they said, "Oh my God, you posted on Dentaltown, and this guy called me up, and he's helping me." And I thought I never raised my hand because I thought I would get my license taken away. Now I'm in this 5-year PINA program, and I got all these dentist friends, and I got all this help and love, and they were just, that's what I tell dentists: if you got something wrong, you need to share it with a friend who thinks in hope, growth, and abundance. You just, these things are solvable.
Well, and part of what I told UMKC is I also would have liked someone to tell me what to do to help a friend. Like, what do you do? Unfortunately, I was one of the last people to talk to Anthony before he died. And it's not like he told me he was thinking about killing himself. I kind of knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. And Even emailed a friend about it, like, hey, I'm worried about this, and never heard anything back because he was busy too. And, the next thing you know, we're all standing at a funeral. But how do you know when someone's in trouble? And maybe that's the $1 million question. But I didn't know at the time that you're actually supposed to ask people, like, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? That's not going to make anyone commit suicide who's thinking about it. It may give you a good idea if they're actually thinking about it, though. And I'm still trying to learn more about this too. So I'm by no means an expert, but my main goal is just starting a conversation. Could we get someone to help us see how we can better help each other? Because a lot of times people won't ask for help. It took me a long time to go seek counseling and to go think about being on medication. And it's changed my life. Like, I'm a much better, more productive, happier person. And I wish people would see that they don't have to be miserable. Like, some of it's situational, but some of it's also just brain chemistry. I usually medicate myself with exercise, but I had knee surgery and was stuck in bed for 6 weeks, and I went crazy. Like, my brain either has to be heavily exercised or medicated.
Yeah.
I think too much.
Well, I did a podcast with Wendy Gesson, who's been a mental health expert for 30 years, and she says that the research has shown about 85% or more of substance abuse is self-medication for mental health. And the one things that she tries to get our clients to understand, she goes, it's not normal to wake up and want to, drink vodka or pills or whatever. You don't feel well. Let's try to get you to feel well. Let's try to medicate you with something, that has research instead of, vodka and Vicodin and whatever. And she's just, she's a firm believer that it's probably the last thing. I mean, if you think about a bypass, I mean, all that guy is a plumber. I mean, he's taking clogged pipes out of your heart, taking less clogged pipes out of your leg, and doing a coronary artery bypass graft. I don't think it was 5,000 years ago they built the pyramids. I think it'll be we're probably at the 50-yard line. It'll probably be 5,000 more years before they just totally understand the brain. So right now, you're alive in 2019. It's an art and a science. They don't know. I mean, the military got in so much trouble when they published their research that showed that they didn't see any effectiveness on their prescriptions they were buying for post-traumatic stress disorder. And then, of course, the Fox News and the right-wing people said, they just don't want to pay for it and all that kind of stuff. But they were being very honest. They were saying, we don't see any value of this. And it just shows you how complex it is.
I'm glad that's not my job.
Yeah. Well, hey, Erin, I
wish people would be more open to getting help, though. That's my message, is if you're not feeling good, like, life is too short to not feel good and to live your best life. Like, go make it so you feel good, whatever that means. Counseling, medicine, not just drowning yourself in vodka. So.
Yeah, and what's so counterintuitive is why you're so successful and why I've been successful is transparency. I mean, like, Dennis will always email me these questions. I say, why are you asking me? That's a small sample size. Why don't you post this on Dental Town? Plus, then they'll register and their name will be Smiley Tooth, and they'll say, I'm thinking about setting up a practice in this city, and they don't say the city. I mean, it's like, look, there's 7.5 billion people on Earth, and nobody's thinking about you. When people are afraid of what everyone's thinking about you, let me give you a heads up. Nobody's thinking about you. So it's counterintuitive to go out there and say, you got to climb the pole and wave your hand and say, hey, I'm over here. My name's Erin Mariscal. I'm thinking about setting up in Arnold, Missouri. Is that any thoughts or feedback? And the world is so noisy with newspapers and TV and social media in your life and driving around and billboards, and you have to scream loud. And so if you have a big problem, your overhead's too high, you're thinking of killing yourself, you're burned out, you don't know which oral scanner, you need to go get transparent. You need to go to Dental Town, which is and sit there and say, here's me, and here's my problem. And if no one answers you the next day, just say, bumping this again, will someone please help me? And you won't believe how much love comes out of that community.
And it's funny because on Facebook groups, someone posted the other day, like, is anyone still in Dental Town? And I posted on there, I was like, yeah. And then some women got on, they're like, oh, it's just a bunch of old guys. And I went on there, I posted, I said, you know what? A lot of those old guys are really good guys at the heart of it. Phil and Bob and, Token Redneck and all those guys have just become, most of them I've never even met, but they're like my people on Dental Town. And I wish all these lurkers would get on there and post because they're reading all of our stuff, but they're not participating in the conversation. So yes, it's maybe the old guys who've been on there forever who will actually post and respond to things. But if all those lurkers would just log in and put in their feedback, imagine what kind of community we would have.
It's actually, Mark Zuckerberg owns Facebook. His dad's a dentist. He comes on the show every year, but it's a social problem across all social media platforms that 90%. Pull up all your Facebook friends. Say you have 100 Facebook friends. Nine out of 10 don't post. So they're the lurkers, and about 9% engage. They'll reply to something you said, but only 1% create all the content. They're called super users. And what people don't realize is that the on Dental Town, there's 25,000 unique monthly unique active visitors. 25,000. That's a hell of a lot of dentists, and it's about 100,000 per year that come on one time or another. But those trying to get those lurkers to realize that, hey, nobody knows Dr. Smith in Parsons, Kansas. Nobody cares about Dr. Smith in Parsons, Kansas. And if you got a damn problem anywhere from marketing, advertising, overhead, your hygienist wants a raise, or you're burned out, or you're suffering from depression or mental, you gotta just be counterintuitive. All success is counterintuitive. When everybody's looking right, it's like Warren Buffett. When everybody's selling, that's when you buy, and when everybody's buying, that's when you sell. And the lurkers need to be completely counterintuitive to the ones that decide to be transparent and post their problems. And those are the ones that get the most help. Gosh darn, I'm so crazy that anywhere I'm in town running an errand, I was running an errand yesterday and I saw a dental office. I walked clear across the street just to walk in there and meet one of my homies. And it's about a 90% chance he's shy and introvert and it'll scare him. And it's about a 10% chance that he's hope, growth, abundance, extrovert, shakes my hand. Next thing you know, you're drinking a beer, watching a ball game with him. So, well, hey, man, we went way over. We went an hour and a half. But, hey, Erin, you're the best.
I was going to say, it's just fun. So I'm an open book.
And tell your
Really
Graham Dursley to come on the show. Tell him his ears are burning and to come on the show. And thanks for your several thousand posts. Big fan of yours. And when you got banned, who was the first person that emailed Hogo?
What?
When you got banned on Dental Town, who was the first person that emailed Hogo?
I'm hoping you.
It was me. I said, no, not my Erin. Not my Erin. You gotta call her. And
I have to say, probably the first person in history who got banned and asked to do a podcast on the same day. I wear it well.
All right. Well, you have a rockin' hot day. Thanks for coming on the show.